copy.
Rob cuts it a little bit too.
Did you print the last
Five.
resolution for 28 Walnut that I circulated?
Yeah,
Oh, no, there it is. Yeah,
I'm pretty
there it
sure
is.
that's it.
There-
That's the last.
Yeah, there it
I
is.
took that from the last
I
email.
have it, yeah. Silly. 28.
All right, so we're online.
Where's that, the resolution? Here it is.
Is Karen with us by phone?
Nope, she's
No.
coming in.
Okay.
Karen's coming, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's fine.
Viv, deadline's next Tuesday, right, for the February meeting?
For the February meeting, I was just looking at it. I think it's the 30th?
Yeah, I think that's already.
January 30th.
I think that's Tuesday
Yes.
already.
Yeah.
There's no way Rob will get it cut so close all the time. Here he is.
Josh, good to see you. Yes, I thought, yeah, good to see you. It's been a while. Yeah, it's been a couple years. Yeah.
Good evening.
Hi.
Jerry.
Hey, Joe Ariel, nice to meet you.
Oh, good, okay, so fine.
Good evening, Mr. Jerry.
Hello, how are
Nice to see you again.
Jerry, hey, Jerry.
Well, nice to see you.
Hi, Jerry.
Vivian.
Vivian.
Nice to see you.
Nice to
Thank you
see
so much
you.
for all your help.
No problem.
Vivian, nice to
Hello.
see you too.
Thank you for that. Some light reading.
Did you bring that, or is that left at our home? That's
No,
my-
this is yours. Yeah, this is yours. Yeah. I just brought it because I saw something in there I wanted to get a picture of before I left.
Yeah, it's quite
Rob's gonna be a minute, he's here.
Enjoy it.
Hi, Arthur.
Hello, Viv, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good, thanks. It's kind of rushed. It's a little early.
I started reading,
Oh, you did?
Pawling and Pawling.
Okay.
Yes, we're on. January 24, 2024, planning board meeting, 6 o'clock.
How do you do that? You just touch it like that?
Right.
It was very nice. I have to still text her and call her.
Okay, I'll let her know you got it.
Yeah.
That's a nice tab.
Hey, good, thank you.
Right. Should I give Karen a quick call?
Yeah, see how far out she is. She's right here.
Sorry about that. It's okay. Very, very, yeah. Almost. Good, how are you?
I started it myself. Do you have an extra pen?
Yep. Ready when you are.
All right. All right, welcome everybody to Wednesday, January 24th, 2024 meeting of the planning board. Can I get a roll?
Rob Pfister,
Here.
Lou Musella,
Here.
Pete Pinelli,
Here.
and Joseph and Karen. Karen are here.
Would you like to listen to the pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And, first on the agenda tonight is One Memorial Avenue sketch conference for a change in use.
Good evening, Evan Pendleton with Insight Engineering, Surveying Landscape Architecture. The applicant for the project is in attendance for this. So we just want to do a overview of the project, get some initial feedback in order to do a resubmission. Basically, the project is a change of use. The existing building on the corner of Memorial Ave and East Main Street. Currently, there are office buildings, and the upstairs third floor consists of short-term rentals. They want to do a change of use to do a hotel. would consist of an office and 1 suite on the first floor, 3 suites on the second floor, and 2 suites on the third floor. So we're in the process of getting an updated survey, but not much has changed since this survey with the exterior to the building. As far as the project, there's no exterior changes. All the changes to this, to the building are internal renovations. The one thing that does not show up here is there is a patio area behind, that is leased to the cafe.
Excuse me, do we not have an easel here?
Yes, right behind you over here.
Thank you.
So again, no changes to the exterior of the building. As far as parking, we would have 1 space in this driveway, and then the applicant leases spaces, approximately 8 to 9 spaces behind CVS that would provide additional parking for the use. Based on the requirements that we could find, it seems like the planning board would determine the required number of parking spaces. But with what was previously in the code, 1 space per room and then 3 spaces per office. So we feel that we meet that with the number of suites in the office in the first floor, based on the current parking available. The one thing we're reaching out to the building department for is just the definition of a room. Whether it be the individual suite, or the suite itself, or the individual rooms in the suite. Based on his determination, we will either keep the application as a hotel, or it'll change to a bed and breakfast, which we would just amend the application to be a special use permit.
You had mentioned something about the other building, a balcony or something?
So behind here, this area is leased to the cafe.
Right. Okay. And you propose on using that in any way?
No, it's gonna remain leased to the cafe.
The only, it seems like to me personally, it seems like a pretty cut and dry application. I mean, it's a permitted use in the zone. And it's a newly renovated building. The exterior is not gonna be touched, just the interior. But naturally, the parking is an issue. And I know that space is rented behind CVS and the upper lot. I'm very familiar with the upper lot. Does the applicant, does he have sole rental space up there, or is he shared that with other people?
I believe it's not shared.
And the reason why I asked that question, Dave, is because I had an incident this morning around 4:30 with an individual that was illegally parked outside on the street, and I was in the process of issuing him a ticket. And he came running out. He says, no. I said, well, you can't park it. You can only park here starting at 7 o'clock. From midnight till 7, it's legal. He said, well, I was parking up in the back. So with that additional parking that, let's say, you solely have for yourself, there would be enough parking for your requested use.
Yeah, so we
So you have to keep-
we have some tenants, subtenants now, they're on a month-to-month basis.
Okay.
And it's actually more like 10 spaces up there, I mean, you probably know it better, but it's.
Yes.
And then we just bought the property next door, 15 Memorial, which we're gonna be submitting an application for that as well, to have 4 suites. So that has about a quarter of an acre behind it, so there's, we have quite a bit of room to accommodate additional spaces if we need them, so.
Okay, so the parking that you have back there right now, I know it's for the station inn. You use that for the station inn, and you're also gonna be using it, if you granted permission, And so you think you have enough spaces at that point with both businesses?
I do, yeah, based on the, yep. So-
And you also said, did you sublease some parking spaces as well?
Well, right now, there's some people, some of the apartments that live around, those people have a month-to-month leases of
I
some,
get it,
so I think
okay.
we have 6 or 7
Right.
of those folks, so those, we're gonna take, hopefully keep them if we don't need the spaces, but if we need them, then we'll take the ones we need.
Okay.
So.
How are you gonna gain access to the building from the parking lot up in the back? You gonna walk all the way down onto Main Street and around?
That's a good question. We have, we're gonna be putting a walkway behind Vinnie's. We're, yeah, so that, we gotta get a building permit for that, but we're gonna put stairs where his dumpsters are now, those are gonna be moved over. And we'll put some preformed stairs there with either a concrete or a boardwalk kind of a thing. So it's gonna be very, a lot closer for people. Although walking past Vinnie's to One Memorial is not, it'll be very accessible to the station inn, but also, so,
I don't believe there's any lighting up there, is there, Dave?
not yet, but we'll definitely want some.
Yeah, we will, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Karen, you have any questions?
So the, the code enforcement officer is gonna help you sort out whether this is a hotel key or a suite. I mean, when you say suite, is there an implication there as to like a greater number of people staying, or?
No, just, some of the suites have multiple rooms,
Okay.
so how he defines a
Mhm.
room,
Mm-hmm,
whether it be the suite itself or the individual rooms in the suite.
okay,
Evan is subbing for somebody else, so actually, there will be more people.
Okay.
It'll be, there's gonna be, they're larger spaces than the ones in the station inn, so presumably people are gonna, if they're 2-room suites, they're gonna probably have a bedroom and then maybe if something folds out, or maybe a smaller bed or whatever, so I would say that, in fairness, there will be more people, so. 1 bathroom in each suite though, so.
okay.
So it's not based on bedrooms necessarily, or they're basing it on rooms?
Well, that's what we need to find out.
Right.
Because the room, it's defined as, room is not defined, so whatever the definition is, as the building inspector interprets it, that's what we'll do.
Alright.
And then just curious to know the reason for the change of use from Airbnb to hotel.
Well, it's just the demand,
Mhm.
it's just, and to be able to expand, we can't use the second and first floor, we don't have a permission to use those spaces for anything other than office right now, so.
Mhm. So there's office on the second floor as well?
Mhm,
Okay.
yeah, we had, at one point, we had 16 offices,
Mhm.
and now we, with this, that'll go down to, 6 or 7, I believe.
And then what,
No, you go.
sorry, one last question, what is the story with 14 Memorial? You're also planning
15.
15?
Yeah, we just closed on that, and that's, we met with an architect the other day, and she's laid out 4 suites, 4
Mhm.
large suites, 2 on the first floor, 2 on the second floor. So that would be, again, that's more like family style, there's a kitchen there, and, we're not planning on serving food, but we could, I guess, possibly, maybe have events there.
And are these supposed to function as a single hotel then, ultimately?
Yeah, it's all, they'll all be integrated into one operation.
Okay.
Yeah. And they're all kind of, there's a gate for pedestrians from 15, right where that parking area is. So they're all pretty close proximity to each other.
Okay.
How many spaces do you have in that lease agreement? Do you know?
Well, we have the whole lot.
The whole
It's
lot.
It's that upper lot.
Right. Do you
Yeah,
know-
Yeah, so I haven't.
So they're not striped, right? It's just.
Not yet.
Yeah.
We'll do that. We'll stripe them and
So
we'll
you
figure that out.
probably wanna take a look at that and just see how many
We'll have
spaces
that,
actually get.
we'll have that buttoned up in the next meeting.
I'm sure,
How many
yeah.
we have.
And I know there's a gate from that lot there, Dave, And that goes to 15 Memorial?
Yep.
You go through that gate, and what's there? Just an open space, or?
Well, that's the parking lot to the, there's a pretty good sized parking lot in 15, so that's, you know, probably 5 or 6 spaces there, so, and then there's room to, we could expand, you know, we'd have to take down a retaining wall, but we could expand that into the yard if we had to.
We should take a walk up there and take a look at it.
Yeah, it would be good to show that, maybe on
Yeah.
the next site
Yeah.
plan, how that ties into this.
Well, we're gonna have that submitted too at the same time, so you'll be able to see the whole thing.
I mean, I don't see any reason, if you guys agree, why you couldn't start the process of an actual submission.
I think you're just waiting for the code enforcement officer to
Yeah.
specify, you know, those details about the room.
Sure. Yeah, 'cause that'll be, give you a lot of insight whether or not,
Yep.
you know, you're gonna be able to get the parking.
Yeah, like I say, it doesn't change the application much, it just goes to a special use permit.
I guess the code enforcement officer is working on that right now for you? He's looking into
We're
that?
gonna be reaching out to them, yeah.
Oh, good.
Just one thing, Evan mentioned 7, and that was what he'd been told, but it's likely it's gonna be 5 at the most, so, and maybe even 4, because it, you know, we're still using the offices, and so we figured we would put in the application initially, but laying it out, it's not gonna be enough space in there for 7.
I'm familiar with downstairs, the first floor. I know your office was to the right, and then the conference room.
Well,
was
Brian
to the-
Smith, that's Brian Smith, he's renting that now. I'm upstairs now.
Oh, you're upstairs,
And
okay.
partly downstairs.
That's right, Brian's down there
So
right
we-
now.
Yeah, we have a lot of people working remotely now, so we don't need.
How about the conference room, is that still there?
Yeah, we'll keep it, yep, and that's, you know, that could be potentially a suite at some point, but not in the near term.
Brian Morgan's office was behind the conference room.
Brian
right?
Smith,
Brian Smith?
yeah, the accountant.
I know, the accountant, one of the attorneys, who was the attorney that was on?
Oh, no, he's not with us anymore.
Yeah, I know he's not with you anymore, but he had an office
Yeah,
off the
he was in the
conference
back,
room,
right
right?
behind the conference room.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm good to go?
Yeah, I mean, if, Karen thinks you should clarify what you need to with the
Yeah.
building department first before you submit an application.
Yeah.
And I don't think, the board's necessarily leaning against this.
No,
So-
I think it's a good project.
I just hope you have the people to fill it.
You too.
Yeah, I bet. Nobody more than you, right?
All right.
That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kurt,
Okay.
you're up next.
Hello, everyone. Okay, 146 East Main Street. I believe the reason we're here tonight is because just have one little wrap-up item of showing the 10-foot landscape strip easement on 140 East Main Street. So we have that shown on the plans now, as well as on a survey that was submitted to the board. So I believe that once it's approved by this board, it will be filed with the county, so we'll have the easement on there. And I think that was what Karen had mentioned basically in her letter to you, that that's what we needed to do. We do just have a strip of staggered evergreens along this entire strip on the northerly part of the property.
I did a lot of research on this landscaping, because I was glad that we're at this point right now. Because landscaping, the building is gonna be beautiful, we know that, and we all know how important that corner is. Well, like anything else, landscaping really brings out the beauty of a particular piece of property. So, I took the liberty actually of looking up every species that you have on this here, and if then, some of them are native to the area and some aren't native to the area. But there's one particular piece that I'm concerned about, that I wanna address and make a recommendation that you change it. I'll make a recommendation to the board that we change it. Actually, there are two. I know that you have 2 pin oaks that you have. And the only thing that I don't like about a pin oak is, and this is up to you guys, they don't lose their leaves
Okay.
until late in the season.
Okay.
And then nasty to maintain.
Mhm.
If you wanna put a white oak in there, it's fine, but if you wanna keep the pin oak, I mean,
We're certainly amenable to
that's fine.
that type of tree.
Right, but the major change that I would like you to make, and then what, can I say insist that you make? I don't know if that might be a little too
Well,
strong.
let's hear what it
Well, you
is.
know how, now you know how strong.
I mean,
that
you can
feels.
say it.
I feel it.
In discussion about it.
Is the northern property line.
Yes.
You don't, I like you to change the species that you have there right now from the, let's see, the American arborvitae
Yes.
to the green giant.
Okay.
And I've called up a number of people. I've spoken to landscape architects throughout the state. I call Long Island. I must have contacted 5, 6, 7 people. I actually had conversation with people online about about the species. The green giant is better. It's a fast-growing tree. It's deer resistant. It's salt tolerant. It's perfect for a border. And I want to make sure that the property north of the restaurant has an immediate hedge.
Mhm.
I don't want to plant trees there that are going to have to grow to be a hedge. I want, as soon as the ball goes in the ground and the tree's planted, I like to see a hedge.
Yeah, I know the green giants are readily available, they grow
Yes,
well,
they
so I have no problem with
And there's
switching that
one- But
out.
there's one other thing.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
You know me, I mean, I've been pretty vocal with this particular project, so I'm not gonna stop right now. You know, I measured 200 feet, the property line.
Mhm.
Am I, and, you know, it's from, based on the scale,
Yeah, 140 and 50, yeah, it's about 200 feet.
200 feet.
Yes.
you're gonna need about 50 trees. Because you're gonna use a staggering, so that's 2 rows. And in order to make sure that I was right, I did the calculation a couple of hundred times, and I spoke to, and when I presented my argument to each individual landscape architect, I just told them what I wanted to do. I have a 200-foot property line.
Mhm.
I want to immediately block out my neighbor. How many trees am I going to need using the staggered method? And they said, 45, 50. One local landscaper that we have right here in town said we need 53. So that's my concern, and that's my proposal, that you change it to the green giants, you plant them every 6 feet, trunk to trunk, staggered, and you can put the second row maybe 3 foot behind it, and put it right in the middle of the first 2.
Yep.
And this way, and I also like to have them, I also like to recommend that they be 6 to 7 feet tall. The headlights on my truck are 4 feet off the ground, and I have a standard Silverado.
Mhm.
So I want to make sure when I pull into the parking lot and my truck is facing northbound, I don't want my headlights to go into the neighbor's property. So I would suggest that we plant the green giants to make an immediate hedge in the staggered planting design, 6 feet apart, trunk to trunk, and 3 feet, like a diamond shape, 3 feet from the front row to the.
Yeah, I'm just concerned with them being too tight that they're gonna choke each other out. 'Cause I have 28 shown here, they're 8 feet in
Yes.
diameter,
Yeah.
and they're all touching each other.
Yeah,
So, I mean, if we put 50 in there, I'm concerned that they're gonna choke each other out and not be able to survive.
well, I just got that from, well, actually, it was Pete
Morosky.
Yeah, he actually took a walk up there for me. He says, come on up, and he says, I'm not gonna go on the property. I said, but if you wanna go, you can go. And I told him the exact same, and he came up with 53. So, it's difficult based on the information that I've had and all the research that I've done. If I say 50, but you only need 40, how can I word this, Joe?
Well, the first thing that is apparent, I think, is that number is in the range of twice the number that you're showing now.
Mhm.
And that makes sense if you're gonna require a staggered a staggered configuration. I guess if you can show that they'll grow, the you know, the new evergreen that we're talking about will grow to a, you know, a fully grown width that will create that same buffer, that would be something.
Well, here's the thing, I wanna disagree with you. I don't want it to grow to become a hedge. I want them planted to be a hedge.
Yeah, yeah.
They grow quickly, I mean, they make an excellent hedge. So
mean-
that's my dilemma at this point.
I will defer to Pete, because it's Pete's business, but maybe we could say a minimum 36 or something, up to 50, or maybe up like that, and based on layout of when they get them in there. I mean, we're at this late point in this whole game, it's like, I'd love to just
I
be
know.
done with this, and we'll
I know.
be done with it.
This here is the only point that I wanna make sure is correct, because I wanna protect
Understood.
the resident that's north of the property.
Mhm.
And I just don't wanna, I wanna make sure that when, there's no space. I want an immediate hedge, so if we can,
Well, I mean, probably the board should discuss it, I mean, because, you know, I think we're ready to move on this potentially, but if
Yeah,
that's,
we are.
if that's up in the air, I guess you should discuss what the will of the board is, on that issue. Maybe there's a middle ground, or maybe you like the recommendation.
Yeah, I mean, can we give it like a conditional approval, like upon, I don't know.
Or if we say
wanna do
40,
that.
if we got 28
Down
shown now,
there.
50, if we say 40. I'm just concerned with them crowding each other out
Yeah,
and
I get it.
dying.
Yeah, no, I get it, like they.
I mean, I
everybody's still-
understand
yeah.
Lou's point with, you want this screen in there, but you have to have a little bit of room for them to kind of flourish and grow.
Sure. And are they trimmed at a certain height? Do you
well,
keep them trimmed down?
you do have to take care of them, you know, I mean.
Do they topped at some point?
You can top them,
Yeah.
I mean, they'll grow.
They're pretty resilient.
Yeah, they are.
Cause
Yeah,
arborvitae's, they get what, 20 feet high?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we want them to be ridiculously high. I think we want to just make this green wall, is what
Yeah.
we're
Right,
gonna do.
exactly, right.
So,
Yeah, if you're okay with doing a staggered.
we haven't shown staggered now.
Yeah,
right?
With
That's
the,
all- Yeah,
with the green giants and.
that's fine. I have no problem with the species. I'm just wondering if we could maybe get a minimum of 40. Something like that. Again, we're talking a few trees,
Yeah, I don't know how
so.
big around green giants get.
Well, and how about the size, 6 to 7 feet tall?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, at planting, we can say minimum,
Yeah.
yeah.
We can say that.
We can say that a minimum of 6 feet tall at planting.
Yes, I think that's fine.
Yeah,
Okay, right.
and I'm tracking this as we discuss it, so.
So let's say, you'll start planting from the west side,
Mm-hmm.
and you're gonna go 6 feet trunk to trunk. And you get to 40, but you're gonna need more.
Then we plant more.
Okay.
I'm not sure about the 6 feet. 6 feet trunk to trunk only gives you 3 feet of growing space.
Okay, how far did you intend to plant them trunk to trunk?
I think we had them here, they were like, probably about 8 to 10 feet.
Yeah, 8 feet.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, because, 10 feet's too much. I did hear 8 feet.
So if we maybe found 40 in there, so it's between
So if we-
28 now, 50,
I'm sorry?
20 is shown on here now.
Right.
So we're about 30, you're saying 50, maybe if we say minimum of 40,
Minimum of 40
at 8 feet,
at 8 feet apart.
Yeah.
But if you need to plant more, you'll plant more.
correct, to fill that whole border, east to
Right,
west.
now, based on me driving up there and me looking, and I don't wanna see the piece of property. Okay.
Yep. Because you know where to find me, unfortunately.
And I'll come look at
I
it.
know you will.
So do we have an agreement on that?
Yeah.
So Karen, do you have any further comments?
No.
So I've prepared a resolution for this, for an approval tonight, and we don't need to read the entire resolution, it's fairly standard stuff. I think it would be worthwhile to, really for the applicant's sake as well and the public, that if I read the conditions that we're contemplating, so everybody's clear on what we're doing, and especially because we just had this
John's gonna
discussion.
take care of that. You gonna read the
Yeah,
resolution? Okay,
yeah,
good.
I'm gonna read just the conditions.
Okay.
So, the applicant shall submit completed plans as may be required by the Village of Pawling Code, section 98.6, or 9865P, which is just, the site plan regulations, and in accordance with the conditions set forth herein. With respect to said conditions, the plan submitted for execution by the chairman shall reflect the installation of a minimum of 40 green giant evergreens at the south property line of the 40 East Main Street property, which abuts the north side of the site to screen noise and headlights from 146 East Main Street. And reflect additional landscaping which was proposed for the east side of 140 East Main Street, where previous existing vegetation was removed for installation of a generator that has since been removed, all to the satisfaction of the village planner. So just submit the revised plan, let Karen take a look at it and confirm.
That's this plan, right, with just the 40 shown?
Right, well,
Well, so in the minutes from
Yeah,
whenever that was, there was discussion about additional landscaping.
here,
Yes.
okay. Yeah, then there was all kinds of legal stuff that went on, and I think agreements were made, and I
Yeah.
don't know, I wasn't part of that, but.
Right, so I'm just
Yeah.
reminding the
Cor-
board that
correct.
that was part of it.
Yeah, I think that this was the main crux of it, but that's up to.
well, I think it was the main discussion point, but I do think this is a point that's been raised and should be incorporated in a resubmitted plan, just show some landscaping there.
All right, we
Yeah,
just,
the landscaping there should follow kind of what Dwayne had in mind for Route 22, trying to make that corridor tree line to make it more look like a boulevard. It's just not a drive-through highway, so, it doesn't have to be like just a row of trees possibly, kind of like what they did at the corner of Pine, the office building on the right. They just put a
Yeah.
nice line of whatever type of tree
Mhm.
it's suggested to try to create that, like,
I'm
that
sure-
effect that
I'm sure
hopefully
we
continues.
could put a couple Bradford pear, or maybe not Bradford pear, but some kind of that
Right.
tight looking.
Yeah, he mentions the type of trees that should create this boulevard look on Route 22 that's, trying to be established in the
Okay.
future, so it's not gonna be like a hedgerow, but it's more of a tree line.
So how about we say 3 of those maybe along here, just to create some kind of edge?
Yeah, I think it's an aesthetic provision primarily,
So-
for the corridor.
We'll do like 3 flowering, some kind of mid-level deciduous tree that will give us that line. I think that's what
Yeah,
Pine Drive has, I think is something similar to that.
Right.
And then the other condition is, and again, these are conditions that have been discussed before, I don't think they should be surprises to you, but a landscape and maintenance easement along the southern property line of the 140 East Main Street property in form satisfactory to the village attorney, that'll be me, so you can submit that my way. Suitable for recording between 140 East Main Street as the grantor and Main Corner Properties LLC as the grantee, as shown on a survey by Robert Oswald. So I just need to see that easement.
I think we did like a Schedule A or something that was submitted, so is that what you're looking for?
Yeah, but because it'll need to be recorded, it needs to be like an instrument that's, grantor, grantee, instrument. The Schedule A, of course, will be attached to that, but
Yeah.
it needs to be something that can be recorded in the county office buildings so that the properties can depend on it, and it shows up in the chain of title. And so with those conditions, and I'll clean this up, again, I've made the notes here as I read them, but with those conditions, I think the board could consider moving the
Do we
resolution.
have to stipulate how far apart trunk to trunk, 8 feet?
I think, did I say that? I thought I
It's in
said
there.
that.
Did you say that?
Yeah,
You said that?
it's
He
in there.
didn't say it, but it's in there.
Yeah,
okay.
It is in
Okay.
there, yeah. Yeah, so I think if someone is inclined to move the resolution and second it, I think we could.
I'll make that motion that we move the resolution.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Better, Lou?
Okay.
Now when are you gonna get started on the rest of the project?
Much better.
I did my part.
Thanks.
Thank you, Kurt.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kurt.
You're not done with me yet.
No, I know that. Now you go out and bother me about all the noise you're making every day.
Next on the agenda is Pawling Commons, the amended site plan, special use permit.
Okay. All right. I think we were last before you in November, I believe. Since then, we had a review letters from both Karen and the engineer at Labella that we've been working through. So we've done that and resubmitted. I know Evan from Insight has been working on the engineering stuff. I could maybe just go through Karen's letter with the open comments she had, just to kind of update you on those. Let's see, we had, and this will all be, we'll have letters that, in response to this, and probably the documentation will come back for next Tuesday for Vivian, but just to go through them now. Provide correspondence with New York State DEP, New York City DEP, excuse me, relative to permitting SWIP and sewer extension. We did get the response from the DEP regarding the SWIP, and that it's not required on this property. We have documentation for that, which will come back in, and then we know about the sewer extension on there. The board should consider the suitability of proposed hours for operation of an outdoor dining area, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. So I guess that's an open item for the board to discuss on that. Again, we don't know the exact user proposed for the old bank space, but we were proposing that be a restaurant and have some outdoor seating there. So thinking that that would be viable hours for an establishment to come in there, to be 11 to 11. Applicants should provide confirmation of capacity of the Pawling Joint Sewer Commission for New York City DEP requirement. We did just get a will-serve letter from the Joint Sewer Commission that has a flow of 20,000 gallons per day, and that's acceptable, so that'll come into you as well. U.S. Forest Wildlife, something like that, indicates the potential for regulated bat species at this location, therefore tree clearing restrictions should be implemented, and I know it should be added to the plan. I'm gonna work with Karen. We have a note on that about no tree clearing from March 31st through November 1st. Provide additional lighting details related to building mounted lights, bollards, etc. Information should include Kelvin readings. Yes, and that has been done, and we'll pre-submit that. Burning bush and winter creeper are both considered invasive by New York State DEC. Please provide alternatives. We've done that as well, so that'll be on the revised landscape schedule. And the board should consider how to ensure parking for the village will be retained if desired. And I think we spoke about that last time, about the village parking. You know, our goal in what we're doing here, the owner is completely open to having events or whatever, working out that type of thing. But for the viability of this site, we're really trying to get more parking on the site so that this site is viable. If we get it fully occupied and realize we have extra parking, then certainly the village, we could have a discussion with them about using some of the on-site parking, because we know we're at a deficit, but, you know, it's just nothing firm right now, not knowing, but, you know, if there's an event, we've done it for the, you know, the walkathon at the resource center and stuff, that they can park there, things like that, so. All right.
So why don't you walk me through exactly what changes you're gonna make right now and,
So basically, this was the approved plan, here's the proposed plan here. Essentially, what we're doing is we're expanding the parking into this area here and widening this strip behind the building here to put additional parking in this area here, create a green space for residents of this building in here, have a little bit of green space here, have better parking layout in this whole thing, and actually the code official likes the circulation on the site much better with this for fire and things like that. So it's basically expanding into this area a little bit and having parking in the back and a driving aisle in the back of that building that's usable. That would most likely be for employee parking in the back here, because you can come into the back of the building here. So that'll get any of the employees parking over here and leave this more open in here for the retail and residents.
are you gonna leave the bank, the overhang, for the bank, you're gonna leave that?
The idea there is that would be covered outdoor seating space for a restaurant.
Mhm. Would that be enclosed, or are you gonna leave it open?
No, I think the idea is to leave that open, yeah. And then there'd be, to the side of that, get rid of some of this asphalt in here and have this outdoor seating in here with a little more green space here, so really neck that down a little bit. coming around.
So you think this is gonna be probably the last change on this particular piece of property?
I hope so.
Yeah.
Well, it's getting there, it's moving along. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the only thing is the refuse over by Sunsets, with the dumpster over there. I know it's not necessarily right next to the house, and I guess you can ensure that whatever retail space, if there is some kind of like food products.
That would
Yeah,
be-
going over to that one, yeah.
that would be that. I think this is just for ease of residents of this building, particularly in here, just be able to put their garbage in there. And it's just a function of getting a garbage truck in here, backing up, coming around, and making that. And this is really, the house is here, and these houses are all here, so this is in the very back of that yard.
You can't expect the people from 71 over here hiking all the way to the back corner to dump garbage.
No, it's not gonna happen, that's why that's.
That's what I'm
there.
saying.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's gotta be there.
Mhm.
In a sense, are you able to pick which days, like they come and pick the garbage up?
There's probably some leeway in terms of that. I mean, it's at least once a week. We get our dumpsters picked up once a week at our place. I mean, if it needs more than that, we can do more than that. We're not gonna let it sit there and fester. But it will be enclosed with a fence and screening.
What type of landscaping are you proposing on the, southerly side?
Yeah, there's all, this is all a landscape strip below this, so that we went through that with the whole last go around.
Rock.
Here, actually here.
Okay.
This is all plantings
There you
on this
go,
whole
okay.
side.
He had it the last time, it's in the old plans.
What kind of fence is it around the refuse?
It'll probably be a white vinyl fence. It's 8 feet tall or so. I think it's on the plan somewhere in one of the details.
Do you have room for landscaping around that?
Yes. Yeah, we do. Yeah, because it's actually in the parking, so we can get some landscaping around the back side of that. Green giant arborvitae, I think would be very nice.
That's a good
behind that.
choice. Done your homework, I'm very good.
There's a lot of rock over there. Don't be expecting miracles over there.
It's, the rock is pretty much here. The bank is over here, so I think we're a little bit, we have a little more soil back there, but.
Could you update us on the stormwater conditions on site?
Yeah, actually, maybe Evan can go into more of the engineering aspect of it.
So really not much has changed as far as the stormwater. You know, we've kept a similar design with the additional impervious from the parking back here going to an infiltration system. It did get a little bit bigger, and then we added another separator just to treat the roof runoff from this building. Other than that, we have a hydrodynamic separator for some of the expanded parking here, another one for this new building here, and a final separator for this expansion along the side. So overall, most of the stormwater has stayed the same. We added a little bit more treatment just for the redeveloped areas. As he mentioned, we do not need DEP slip approval for this, because majority of the impervious on site is existing. And then other changes we made, he mentioned the sewer. We are preparing submissions to the health department and DEP for the sewer connection from this building. We did a fire truck maneuvering study to show both fire engine access and delivery truck access through the site. So we have a fire engine coming through this way to the fire lane across the front of this building and behind the building, and then, I'm sorry, wrong way. So, fire engine comes through this way, fire lane in front, and a fire lane behind the building, and circulates around and out. And then a delivery truck would come through the same route, pull forward and back into this loading area, and then just pull straight out and come through. we did send this plan to the fire department for their acceptance. We're just ready to hear back from them.
Okay.
The loading area is big enough to accommodate what size truck?
These specs were directly from them.
I'm sorry?
The specs for the truck were directly from the fire department, whatever engine size.
No, I'm talking about delivery truck. You said delivery in the back?
This was like a 40-foot box truck.
A 40-foot box truck?
Yeah.
You can get a 40-foot box truck around there, you can get a fire truck around there.
Speaking of fire trucks, how about the water main size? We have enough water, the main going up East Main Street?
That's being worked on now with the village
Okay,
about the water issue.
okay,
Yeah. I think we're good for flow. It's the fire flow for the rear building,
right.
which we aren't into yet, but I think we're good for the front building, but we're working out the details. I think the village kind of just got some information about the existing water main there, so that's being
Okay,
worked
that's
through.
that's in the event that there's a fire we're talking about.
And the sprinklers go on, yes.
Okay, how about potable water?
We're
With the
fine with
two
that.
wells and everything going back to green and the whole 9 yards, with both of them, we're good to go?
Ample water for that.
Okay, ample water, even if.
It's actually the water, I don't believe there's a problem with the water, I think it's the water pressure that is shy on the rear building, possibly. They're working through the details on that, but we have enough water for everything. So,
You have enough for this project, yeah.
Barely, but you got enough.
I mean, that was built in when they were looking for new sources of wells with
Yeah,
sandstone.
the potable water capacity isn't an issue.
Yeah.
The constraint is related to fire flow and fire pressure and has to do with the
Mhm.
distribution,
Mm-hmm.
and the old distribution channels.
Okay, 'cause you just skating, pal.
But what is the condition of, I mean, historically, there were stormwater issues on the site, and there was a bit of an upset in the, late spring, early summer, that was resolved. Has there been anything since then?
I
Just
think that,
current issues, is that all resolved?
I haven't heard any
Okay.
current issues.
Okay,
what's
I
going
haven't
on.
either.
I mean, we've had,
Just wanted to
we've
check
had
in.
some big rain events in the
Mhm.
year, so, but I think that they did a stopgap repair in the back of the old IGA building that's kind of got us through a couple of years, but that'll all be taken care of with this
Okay.
new upgraded
Right,
plan.
right. We haven't scheduled a public hearing yet on
No,
this,
right.
so we should do that. And then you can get some input as to whether Sunset Ave residents have any concerns over the refuse location.
All right, we're ready.
I think you're ready for a public hearing for sure.
All right.
Make a motion, we have a public hearing for this.
I'll second.
Yep, good.
All in favor?
Yeah, aye.
Aye.
Who second?
Aye.
You did?
Yeah.
I do want to just mention another thing, if we could just revisit from the last meeting we had. We had talked about renewing the special permit for the residential uses on the first floor of 71.
Right.
That expires on February 8th this year. So, and it really, the changes that we're proposing really do not affect the parameters of having the residential uses on the first floor, and that building's almost done.
Right.
So just wondering if we can maybe just renew that special permit.
I think, yeah, I mean, I think Joe would benefit from understanding a little bit more the history
Okay,
and what the special use permit has purview over and what it doesn't.
okay. Basically, in the B1 zone, you're allowed to have, per the zoning code, you're allowed to have residential uses on the first floor through special permit with a series of parameters, handicap accessibility, parking on the street. There's a series of parameters that we went through with the approval of the special permit previously. So we have 5 units on the first floor of this building that are residential uses. On the other 2 buildings, we have a full commercial building on the existing one that's here, and the proposed building in the back that will go into construction is commercial on the first floor, basically. So we have, on the site, we have the desired mix that the village kind of is looking for in theory. So this building here is 3 stories, all residential use. So that's in construction now and probably will be done May, June. So our special permit to allow the 5 units on the first floor of that building in construction expires on the 8th. And the board has a discretion to extend that special permit,
Sure.
which we're requesting to do, just so we don't run into a problem with.
Well, I mean, I think that should probably be subject to public hearing as well, if all the conditions line up as you say they do, you know, in line with the previous special permit. I think the consideration of that application won't be any different than it would for a renewal that was timely, so to speak.
Right, and I mean, we built 5 residential units on the first floor. It doesn't make sense to
Yeah.
pull that.
Yeah, no, but I think it should probably, you know,
They already built them.
the public hearing should be on the special permit as well. You can certainly do them concurrently the same night, and then I'll follow up with you just to make sure that I understand going into that meeting and can provide the board with some context on that.
Right, I think Kurt's concern though is that it actually expires
On
on
the
February
8th.
8th.
No, I understand.
Doesn't want to get caught short,
Right.
somebody can complain, and then he's gotta rip them out, he doesn't want.
Well, when would we?
When's our next
convene?
meeting?
Yeah,
Probably mid-February, isn't
Let's look at the calendar.
February 13th.
So it's after,
It's after
it would
February 8th.
expire.
yeah. I mean, look, I don't really have a legal objection if the board is comfortable with, you know, making a resolution tonight to extend it. You know, it's just, if you're comfortable with.
Yeah, I certainly
it?
am.
One thing I mentioned too is,
Yeah.
we're working under an existing approved site plan.
Right.
That's part of an so
Yeah.
if this gets approved, doesn't get approved, or whatever the amendment, we still have the same site plan we're working
Yeah.
under with the special permit attached to that.
Yeah.
so.
I'll make a motion that we approve the extension on the site plan, correct?
Would we continue
Special
the
use permit,
condition, so
sorry.
here's my issue though, the special permits, you know, generally have conditions on them. Is the resolution to continue it with those same conditions? Because otherwise we should talk about those conditions if you're gonna approve it, just because the special permit isn't just a magic word, it's meant to have some constraints.
It's actually, I don't know if I'll look at it, this part here, it's like 2 pages. I don't know if there were conditions in that, I think it was things that we had met as part of the site plan to.
And that's okay too. The question I'm asking the board is if they're comfortable continuing essentially with the same,
Yeah, they're not.
Parameters
They're not
as the last
deviating,
one.
they're not deviating from the original,
Right.
special use permit.
Yeah, it's not really
As
asking.
long,
for
as long as they
amends.
stay within that scope of
sure,
work.
no, I mean, if that's the case, then that's an easy.
You made the motion?
I made the motion that we
I'll second
extend
the
the special use permit, as long as you stay within the same parameters as the original.
And for how long?
Yeah. well,
This guy's, would be a year, right?
I think it has to be finished in 2 years, because I think this was
Okay.
approved in 2022 is the date of this, so I think it has to be finished in the next 2 years. It'll probably should be finished June, July at the latest, that building, for occupancy.
I mean, if you're gonna extend it, I would extend it beyond a year, just
Yeah.
because
Give him
it's-
2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll amend that then, make it 2
All right,
years.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor, aye.
Aye, good to go.
Thank you very much. I can rest easy now.
Good, I'll come I'm not arresting tomorrow, I'll arrest you on Friday.
Thanks.
I'm going to Walmart tomorrow, don't worry about it. I'm gonna holler some
Also, recirculated for lead agency, it's been past the 30 days. Can we have a motion for the board to be lead?
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you didn't have anybody
Yeah.
that was trying to,
Yeah.
that didn't consent to being lead.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that we be lead agency.
That would be a
Yeah.
lead agency, I'll make a motion that we're the lead agency then.
I'll second it.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
And you need to set the public hearing. I don't know that we got to the end of
I
that.
don't think we did, right?
Well, you made a motion to set it, but you
Just
didn't
set a
pick a
public
date.
meeting, just set a date, that's one thing we gotta do.
Lead agency, who motioned?
That was
Mike.
Pete.
Pete.
We'd have to set the date.
Second?
Yeah.
Who seconded the lead agency?
I did.
Lou.
And now we are gonna motion for the public hearing?
We motioned for the public hearing, but we haven't set a date.
Oh, the date.
Haven't set a
Pick a
date.
date, yeah.
So
Um,
it's the next meeting,
the
yeah?
Yeah,
next
why
meeting?
not, right?
Yeah, next meeting, right?
Next meeting, this way here.
Yeah, enough
Yeah.
time to do the notice.
Yep.
Yes, February 13th.
Okay.
Next meeting, we'll have a
Great.
hearing.
Public hearing.
When are you gonna start cutting trees? You gotta wait a while.
For March 31st.
Right, yeah, right. Not too long.
You lucked out last night, you didn't get a lot of snow, you didn't get a lot of ice, you didn't get a lot of rain today either, so.
Yeah, true. All right, is that,
I think.
are we good?
I think, yeah, we're good.
Great, thank you all.
Thanks, good night, Kurt.
We're still waiting a month, that gives us enough time to
Yeah.
post the dates for the.
Yeah, I just
All right. Okay. All right, next on the agenda is Kingdom Hall. Jehovah's Witnesses, a site plan application.
Good evening. Nice to see you again. It's been a little while since we've come before you. It's probably about a year and a half actually, with our initial application. And so I thought just to help us out with our conversation, just a little brief history of the Pawling congregation. So the existing Kingdom Hall over on 568 New York 22 was built under a special use permit in 1995. And since then, our congregations have grown, and now there's actually 3 congregations meeting there, 2 English language congregations and 1 Spanish language congregation. So we have 3 meetings a week, midweek, and then 3 on the weekends, with some overlap on the weekends in particular, which causes some degree of complexities on site, but we're managing it well. And so in our initial application, you will probably remember that there was a desire to extend our parking lot onto, with the access onto Gristmill Lane. We had a lot of discussion on that with the planning board, and then because of that discussion, we had some discussions internal as well to determine, do we really want to proceed with that? And you know, based on the conversations that we had here and then our own internals, we couldn't help but agree that that access aisle, that egress, was probably not going to be very welcome for the residents of Gristmill, but also because of some of the concerns that were stated locally. So in our current submission, we're basically leaving that out of the discussion. And so our revised drawings reflect that. So really what we're looking to do at the Kingdom Hall here is to make best use of the existing building and within the existing footprint, so that we have a little bit better accessibility within the site, but also get better use out of the space that is available within the building. So currently what we're really recommending, and it's indicated in the drawings, but also on this page here, is essentially what we're looking to provide is the 5 compact spaces right here at the carport area. We're looking to provide access from the parking lot to the lower level, where there will be 2 rectories installed into the basement. Then there will be an expansion of the septic field to essentially allow for the installation of the rectories, as well as expanding the seating of the main auditorium. So our current congregations, which we have 3 of, the average attendance is around 120 to 140, depending on the congregation. But throughout the year, we also have special events, funeral services, other events throughout the year that could impact our usage. So though we average about 140, there's occasions where we're going to be in greater capacity than that. So that's why we're seeking to expand the capacity of the building, as well as the septic field by association. So a much simplified project from our end, and essentially trying to bring it to modern day fixtures, and essentially without impacting as much of the site as possible. Really limit that to just what's needed to accomplish our goal of expanding the use of the building.
So back in 1995, you got a special use permit to put the Kingdom Hall in a residential 1 district. It's R1, residential 1. So that specific special use permit was just to allow you to have the Kingdom Hall. Now you're stipulating that you want to have 2 rectories. What is that? What does that mean?
What is a rectory?
Yes, what is a rectory? And is anyone going to be living within those rectories?
Yeah, so the rectory's purpose is for those who are congregation members who are full-time in their service and performing their duties with respect to the congregations. So those duties could be respective to congregation teaching, shepherding, aspects related to our worship. So it is not a public space. It is not something that could ever be taken to market to, advertise possible occupancy. It's for full-time members of the congregation for their use. Similar to a lot of the churches that might have that type of.
I understand that, and I try to do a little bit of research online about the Kingdom Hall. It's very difficult to find anything, to be perfectly honest with you. So this is why I'm asking you, with the, similar to, let's say Catholic Church, they have rectories and the pastor and the priest lives off-site. The Methodist Church, they have a parsonage, the minister lives off-site. Now, with the elders, are they gonna be living on-site in the Kingdom Hall, or they're gonna be living off-site and just come on-site to do their ministry with your congregation?
So with 2 rectories in the basement, and just so you know, we have someone who can speak to maybe the more specifics of the legalities available to us as well, Frank McNamara, who's on attendance. But specific to the use of the rectories, the congregation is made up of, each congregation has several elders within that respective congregation. And so some of those congregation elders are part-time in their service and live off-site. There are some elders who serve in the congregation who are full-time, and that is their congregation assignment could be within this very same building.
Okay, see, this is where I'm having a difficult time. I need you to tell me straight out. Is someone gonna be living in the Kingdom Hall?
Yes.
Okay, okay, fine. So that's a different change of use. Because now you're gonna have a building that was given a special use permit for one particular thing, just to have a Kingdom Hall for assembly. Now you wanna have residents within the Kingdom Hall. So that changes the whole concept. This is why I need you to be forthcoming with me and to be honest with me and tell me exactly what's going on. You just simply say rectories, and that leads me to believe that it's just gonna be an empty space where the elder is gonna come a couple of times a week, minister to the congregation, and leave. But what you just told me, they're gonna be staying there, so that changes the picture a bit.
Well, I don't mean to sound deceptive if that's what you're thinking is happening. The rectories, there are several elders on within any congregation, dozens, and I could not speak to the specific of these ones, but there's dozens of them, and so obviously not all of them would live within the same building.
Even if you have one elder that's gonna live there, these rectories are gonna be intended to be residences. Am I correct?
They will be for the specific purpose of those
Yes.
individuals who live in it.
Yeah, they're gonna be residences, okay.
Yeah.
Are there any other Kingdom Halls that have residences?
Yes.
There are?
Yes.
That's,
Wappingers Falls.
If I could respond to that, Frank
Yeah.
McNamara.
Hi, Frank.
My mother-in-law lives in a Kingdom Hall in Fishkill. Yeah, and the point of this is they're full-time ministers, they're elders of the congregation. They participate in putting together the meetings, spiritual guidance, religious education, as well as, they would be living in the basement, in the 2 apartments in the basement of this building, no change to the building other than that, conducting weekly meetings for the congregation, as well as providing maintenance duties and upkeep and security for the Kingdom Hall itself.
I'm fully aware of the fact that what the elders' responsibilities are, what they're gonna be doing as far as ministering to the congregation, which is a wonderful thing. Don't misunderstand me. I'm just concerned about the fact that now we're gonna have a change in the use because there are gonna be residences and there are gonna be people living in that particular building. And I did some research on this as well. I called 9. I called 9 other municipalities within the area. When I say within the area, I went as far as Upsaugerties and what do you have, Shannon? You have a nice big facility upstate where you do a lot of printing and canning, and they even call that township. Of the 9 townships of Poughkeepsie, Hyde Park, Beacon, Red Hook, Newburgh, Saugerties, Dover, Southeast Brewster. And I asked them if they have anybody living in the Kingdom Hall. And each one of those individuals, when I spoke to the building department, they said no. And you told me they said yes, so I'm just a little,
Well,
I'm
we
just a
have,
little concerned.
there are over, if you were speaking locally, just down the road at 1240 New York 22 in Brewster, New York, there is a rectory in the basement of that double auditorium Kingdom Hall. And that is inhabited full-time. You could call the town.
It
and
may
confirm that.
require an amended special permit.
An amendment, not a change of use, but an amendment to
Right,
the
it's
special
in a
use.
residential zone.
And that's what they have indicated, that they do require a special use
Right,
permit,
right.
so it would
It'd be
be,
a residential zone. In residential zone, this particular district, there's only one residence per building.
Right.
Okay, so if there's gonna be any sort of granting of, what you wanna call it, a special use permit, I can see maybe one rectory, but two, I would have a problem with.
Well, I think that's obviously up for further discussion by the board as the application proceeds. I might suggest that I provide some counsel to you on the mix of residential and
Okay.
religious on a religious use in a residential zone, because
Yeah.
there are some
I'm
parameters
sure
that
there
go
are.
with that.
I'm sure there are.
So,
Excuse me, Judge.
Yeah, sure.
Isn't this an existing, pre-existing condition that's already been allowed?
well, the uses, the religious use has certainly been allowed. I think what you're bringing up is that if you add the residential use, does that change, for instance, the potential conditions on a special permit? We would need to discuss it further, understand, I think, further how many people might be living there at any given time. Those kinds of questions should be asked as we go forward, but, yeah, I mean, there wouldn't be anything that would affect certainly the religious use. And there are some legal parameters in connection with mixed uses even on religious sites that you do have to be observant of. So I think it probably requires just I'll do a little homework on this and work with the applicant too and provide the board with some counsel on that. Because I understand the concern, and I do think it should be flushed out, right? Like precisely what the use will look like, what's the intensity of the use and things like that. But that's what I would suggest we do.
We did provide a little bit of information already on some of the
I'm sure.
existing case law. I don't know if that was already provided to you, just for your consideration.
It was.
Yeah.
I'm just responding to the question that has come up tonight. Clearly, there's maybe a little more
Yeah.
drilling down to do on that to the satisfaction of the board. So yeah, I'm happy to work with you to gather that information and then provide some counsel to the board.
Yeah. Thank you.
And personally, I know of Kingdom Halls on Long Island and up here where there are residents in the Kingdom Hall.
We could provide an exhaustive list of that information, actually.
If I could just, so I'm the engineer for the applicant, but I also actually live in a Kingdom Hall. So maybe I can explain a little bit of the reasoning. So,
Can I have your name?
Eric Brown. Yeah, Eric Brown, P. So, I have dedicated myself to work full-time to support the local congregation and the organization because I feel like that's what I want to do with my life. So, since that's what I've decided, I no longer work secularly. I live in a Kingdom Hall, which is one of these places of worship, and that allows me to devote 100% of my time to teaching, ministering, and also using secular skills that I have, such as engineering, to support the organization. So living in that building simply affords me the opportunity to do that full time and have a place to live. I mean, literally just room and board. It's not any means of material gain or anything personally from that. And it supports the use of the building that I live in, which is a church. It's a religious place of worship. So the two uses go hand in hand in the sense that it's really the living arrangement within that is really one and the same with the religious use of the building. And that's what we presented actually when we came a year and a half ago, is that very reason. In this particular building, there will be 2 apartments with typically 2 couples that are working full-time together. My wife and we support the work. We work together in that same way, and so it would be similar in this building here in Pawling. And that's again, that hasn't changed at all from what we presented a year and a half ago. It's the exact same scenario, and that's why Mr. McNamara had compiled some of the information to show that from a legal standpoint, it also doesn't represent a separate use being added to the existing building, but simply allowing that building to be used more fully for the existing use.
And previously, I provided a memo of law about the residential use of these houses of worship being part of a special use, an amendment to, not a change of use.
Right.
As it pertains to parking, how are the apartments picked up in the parking schedule?
Yeah.
What's the specifics be?
So, right now, even with the proposed 200 seats, we'd only need 40 stalls.
Mm-hmm.
We're proposing 62 with the addition of these 5, coming from 57, which is what we were starting with today.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll have 62 parking stalls, only required 40. These 2 will be marked for the residents so that they'll have a place to park and won't be, used up.
As far as the area east, are you gonna be, you're gonna be encroaching on that particular property at all? You're not gonna change that?
Building footprint will remain 100% the same.
I understand that. How about parking? Are you gonna disturb that area in the back at all? And the reason why I'm asking this question is because the neighbor that, I think that's Cordy, right behind you. She expressed some concern about the lighting that was coming off the property of the Kingdom Hall.
The existing lighting, or what might come as a part?
The existing lighting, and that's, and she invited me down to take a look at it one evening, and I never did. I was gonna do it tonight, but I didn't tell her I was gonna come down, so I didn't go down the driveway. But I think you should be mindful of that, and maybe we can address that if I take a look at it and see if it's.
Yeah, and that's a great question. So the only lighting that's being proposed is a small, like residential style down light that will allow the residents to get in their door. That's it. So no additional site lighting being proposed on this back portion, which, as you can see, is a few hundred feet away.
Yeah, I have no
from the
idea
residence.
if she's, how accurate she is,
Yeah.
but I just wanted to bring it to your attention.
Sure.
I will take a look at one evening just to see exactly what she's talking about.
Yeah, and heavily wooded to this area.
Yeah, I
here.
was surprised that she had mentioned that, because I know
Mhm.
there's a decent amount of space in between the 2 properties. So I'll take a look at that.
I know we asked for specifications on the lighting. Maybe you could also just provide some information as to the existing lighting on the back of the building.
So, do we have photometrics on this one?
Yeah, I
Whether
think you
they're
have
existing or not, I
photometrics,
don't
but
know. Okay.
I was just asking for the actual lighting specs so we could see like the
That
caliber.
might be hard, being it's from 95. I don't know if we'll be able to
No,
find a
no,
cut sheet
no,
for a light.
For the lighting specs for the proposed
Oh, yeah,
light.
absolutely. Proposed
But I was
features.
asking just for you to detail as part of your next submission, some description of the existing lighting
Okay,
on the back of the building.
What are we doing with the driveway entrance?
so, nothing.
That was one of their major concerns the last time they were here.
Yeah,
They
Going,
wanted to go out Chris Knowles, and we were not too happy with that.
we felt it. Hopefully you understand we listened. Yeah, we really did
That's
listen.
why I'm
Yeah.
asking you.
Yeah.
No, that was dangerous.
I remember reading at one point that you wanted to make this change for security reasons. Have you had any instances of any type of vandalism or things of that nature on the property? I'm hoping the answer is no.
I'd have to reach out to Brian.
Hi,
Be aware of any?
I'm Brian Klingerman, I'm one of the local elders and ministers. No, periodically we'll have some stragglers come through, but nothing,
Nothing serious.
no, just, no, nothing that would cause this decision-making process to go into effect, no.
Oh, good. I was just concerned when I read security, I thought maybe perhaps there was something going on locally that we should be aware of.
I think you mentioned that part of the concept of the on-site residences is that put somebody on site to
It's an
sort of
advantage,
pay
yeah.
attention to what's going on with the property.
So, what are your days like?
So, yeah, that's a great question. So, basically, wake up, around 7, I do some Bible reading, some, worship in the morning, and then, I work pretty much on projects like this, for much of the 8 to 5, and then in the evening, I may have my own personal congregation meeting that I attend at the Kingdom Hall where I live, so I'll go upstairs and, congregants from the area will come to the meeting, so we'll have our Bible study session, so it might be a 2-hour meeting or something like that. On the weekend, we have another weekend meeting, which, again, public is invited, Bible study, question and answer. And then usually at least one day during the week or on the weekend, I engage in a personal, ministry, talking to others about the Bible and just trying to share some good news.
All right. Any other tasks that are like required of you, while you're there?
Yeah, so I volunteer to assist with the maintenance of the building, so there are certain tasks that are done on an annual or 6-month or weekly basis, whatever it may be, and so I try to pitch in with those type of things, and when there's snow to be cleared, or if there's a project going on to clean up of the leaves, or if something needs fixed, I'll volunteer to assist with those as well. But yeah, also as far as, it is nice having someone in the building, because if a pipe bursts or there's a leak, which has happened a number of times as while we've lived there, we're able to catch it a little bit earlier, and it does help prevent further loss in the building.
Sure. Who's like responsible now for like the congregation, like, you guys pay an outside agency to like plow or shovel or?
For this particular building?
Yeah, for the.
That'd be a
this one now.
Brian question.
We primarily handle it with our own congregants. Some are men that have trucks and plows, and they just volunteer their time and their resources to get that done. So the congregants themselves and the volunteers pretty much maintain it, and we work with one another to make sure that that happens. We have a small committee, a Kingdom Hall operating committee, and they kind of head things up. They'll let if there's anything major that needs to be done, they'll let the elder bodies of the 3 congregations be aware of that in case there's an added expenditure. So there's good communication about that, so that we're not redundant and also not letting things lapse.
Thank you.
My recommendation would be that the board consider declaring intent to be lead agency for seeker. You could also set the public hearing.
Yeah. I make a motion that we declare ourselves lead agency.
Intent.
And,
Intent, yeah,
and the intent.
yes.
We want to set a date for the public hearing.
I'll second it.
You want that date to be, well,
Can we
it's,
do the public hearing like with the other one, the same day?
Yeah, we
Next
can,
week?
right?
you should, yeah.
Yeah.
I still have to circulate for lead agency.
Yep,
Yeah.
So we can't do the public hearing on.
yes,
on-
yeah, you can.
We can?
You could do the public hearing, you just can't take action until seeker's concluded after that time.
Okay.
Yeah. And it may be that you keep the public hearing open depending on what you hear that night, but,
Okay, so we'll
Lou
also
made the motion, I
set
second the
public
motion.
hearing.
And then we'll do public hearing like we are with next meeting, for Paul and Thomas there, and then.
well, I'm sorry, I just wanna make sure. So let's get a motion and second on the circulating the notice of intent.
Right, we did that.
Did we do that?
Yes.
You've got that? Okay, so let's
do a
take a
separate
vote on
one.
that.
Combine-
All right, let's take a vote on that.
We'll do it separate. All right.
So I made that motion with our intent to be the lead agency.
I
Did
said-
that one.
All right.
Okay.
Well, but did you vote on it?
Yeah, we did.
Did you? Okay, I just wanna,
Yes.
I didn't hear it, so I just wanna make sure.
Motion second and
Right.
voted.
All right, I'll make the motion that we do public hearing next month for this. Need a second.
I'll second it.
Aye. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, there we go.
Oh, wait, what's good?
Do we have a date on that next hearing next month?
February 13th, I think it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's your typical Tuesday?
Yes.
Second
Yes.
Tuesday.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Seven.
Bad weather this month, that's what it was.
Yeah.
Make it easy for everybody, and
Cold
safe.
and wet, yeah. And if I could just ask a point, with regard to that, we have several agencies to apply to as part of this permit, as you probably saw in the short EAF. We have not made any applications, we've just had correspondence just to understand the process better. Should we just hold off on making formal applications until after the public hearing?
No, that's not necessary. You're at liberty to make formal application to the agencies that you need permits from at any time. Many of them won't be able to act on those applications until the secret determination is made, though.
Okay.
So what often, and I would suggest, and I'm sure Karen would too, that you actually do that, because some of these agencies will, you know,
Take the time.
it's not lickety-split. And oftentimes if, depending on the input or feedback you get from those agencies, if we act, as Karen says, seeker's gotta be concluded, and sometimes there are conditions to the approval that require you to get the necessary permits or approvals from other agencies. But I would definitely pursue that right away.
All right, thank you.
Because it may change what you present to us too, depending on what their comments are.
Okay.
And separately, the board will be essentially alerting these agencies to your application as part of the seeker circulation.
All right, very
So,
good. Thank you. And Eric, while we're here, is there any specific point that you want to give clarification on?
I think most of the comments in the letter were pretty straightforward. We are gonna adjust the location of the curb ramp slightly to, or the configuration, I should say, to make sure that individuals can get onto that ramp, even if a car is parked tight up against the curb here. As of right now, the applicant is, since we did remove from the scope basically all of the regrading and additional new asphalt work for the parking lot, with just really keeping the minimal here. They were not looking at restriping this area just yet. However, if in the future, you know, when they're doing a repaving of the entire lot, we would definitely give some consideration to being able to restripe those to current standards. But as of right now, since the scope has been reduced and trying to stay within their budget, we're not planning on doing additional restriping in this area at the moment. Okay. But yeah, everything else I think was very straightforward, and we're working to resolve those comments. We're going to provide details on the septic system, all the calculations. We're preparing in tandem with this application what the NYC DEP needs in order to approve this, because it is in the East Croton watershed. So we may even be able to resubmit updated plans before the hearing, if that's helpful, to address a lot of those questions, just so that they're out of the way.
Sure, I think, yeah, I mean, prior to the meeting on the 13th, when is the submission date?
The submission date for the meeting on the 13th is January 30th.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a Tuesday.
He's got an 8 to 5.
Yeah.
I got nothing else to do. So I like that you look at your watch. How many hours is that? I got the same problem, believe me.
You got a little bit of time.
Yeah.
All right.
All right,
All right.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'll see you February 14th, 13th.
Thank you. Actually, you have the book.
All right, yeah, next we have 28 Walnut Street, subdivision.
So, Mr. Chairman, if it's okay with you, I'd like to sort of provide some orientation for where we are tonight on this application, because there's a meeting following us of the ZBA where they're also considering this application. The ZBA at its last meeting did put off their decision, and as you know, there were certain variances required, and so that, you know, we waited to put them back on the agenda tonight. There are certain conditions proposed, and I'll read them as I did with the last resolution. If the board is inclined to move the resolution and act on it, we can discuss those provisions. I think you've seen that draft. So has the applicant. So I think they're comfortable with these conditions, but we can hear from them if they're not. And I do think that in any event, it's ready for a vote. So if it's okay with you, because Josh, you can confirm for us, there's no proposed change tonight to the plan that's been on the table, right?
You're correct.
Okay, so if it's all right with you, I'll read the conditions that we're contemplating for the benefit of the applicant and the public and the board. If there's any discussion of them by either the applicant or the board, obviously we can have that discussion, but this is what's proposed, I think, that has come about because of the comments of the two boards, frankly, as we move toward these decisions. So the first condition is lighting on the proposed new residence shall be downlit and downshielded, and a note shall appear on the final plat to that effect. The second is the deed for both lots created by this subdivision will covenant that there shall be no natural screening or fencing along the driveway leading to the new residence in order to avoid the appearance of a flag lot, to the satisfaction of the village attorney. What I mean by that is I'll review what Josh prepares and make sure that it meets that condition. And a note referencing those covenants should be placed on the final plat. The applicant should use sediment and erosion control measures approved by the village planner to limit impacts related to stormwater and to water quality on nearby aquatic resources. The applicant shall provide the basic bog turtle education and encounter plan to all contractors, subcontractors, and work persons for their use during construction. The applicant shall submit a preliminary plat for signature by the chairman of the planning board which comports with the conditions herein and the provisions of Village Code Section 8211, which is simply the standard submission for final plat. The applicant shall, within the applicable time periods according to village code and state law, submit for final plat which comports with Section 8212. Again, it's a reference to your standard provisions for what's required for that, as well as containing all the notes referenced herein. And the ZBA shall have approved all variances. So that your approval, because frankly we're happening in somewhat reverse order, the approval is dependent on the variances having been granted, which of course is up to the ZBA, and they'll be convening shortly to see whether that happens. And as I said, those conditions have been shared with the applicant. I don't know, Josh, if you want to, you're comfortable with them?
We're comfortable with them.
So with that in mind, again, you do have a resolution before you. If someone is inclined to move that resolution, or if you have questions, I'm happy to discuss them.
I don't have any questions. I'll make a motion that we move to accept this resolution.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you.
See you in 10 minutes or so.
All right, next order of business, did you guys get a chance to review the minutes?
Yes, I did. I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes.
I'll second that motion.
In favor? Aye. Do we have any old business? Discuss.
No. Nope.
Escrows?
Escrows are good,
Okay.
actually.
All right,
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, Karen.
Who adjourned?
We adjourned.
We adjourn. I made the motion. Who's second?
Oh, I will.
Just saying.
Well, you guys aren't going anywhere, but.
All right, folks, yeah.
Thank you.
Drive safe.
We will, talk to you soon.
Yeah. Vivian, do you have, I can't believe I didn't do this, but I don't think I have my ZBA resolution. Do you have that?
I do.
Yeah, I figured you would.
Yeah, I just left them off the
Sure,
table.
sure, yeah, no, I understand, yeah. Just-
Okay, that's next. Okay.
Yeah, you're right about that.
Me and Alinsky.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're right.
This is yours, too.
There.
Okay, I'll put it at the table. All right, you guys have a good night.
Take care, man.
Stick around for a while.
Two more, right?
Nick has his.
Hey, Hunter, how are you? Good, how you doing? Good, how are you?
Oh, you already gave
Such an interesting trip. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Right, because there's three.
It's your hobby.
You know what? We can share it though.
Well, it's great. I guess they're gonna read it.
Are you good with all of
No,
that?
I could do that.
We need to, we should be moving this over here and then this one over here. Then you have yours and
Hey, Ann. Good, thanks. Another pretty day, huh? Those are mine, that's my junk, yeah.
Our last meal too was in the hospital. We ate hot. Yeah.
It's kind of a nice facility, actually. Hey, it's very nice. Did you get a view of it?
Yeah.
Tonight's double header.
Logan, it wasn't as nice, more parking, but still okay. Spent a lot of time walking around there.
I did too. He stepped away.
Went down to Rossi, I remember.
Holidays and after the year.
Has it been that long here?
Yeah, I was just saying, one of my kids, they were born in Bath, I remember a bunch of times going down to Rossi's, bringing the food out.
Yeah. Terrific.
Yes, I like one of the kids stuff. We get cake, it's a lot better.
Yeah, one kiss.
Oh, what about Tom?
What's that?
Tom's working. Sure? Yeah.
Yeah, I use half.
Well, we'll wait a little bit for him, maybe he's delayed.
When was it scheduled to start? 7:30?
Yeah.
Oh, 7.
Well, originally, it had been, I think the last email was 7:30.
Yeah,
Then-
7:30,
But then you and I had spoken today about how you guys decided to make it 7. But I don't know if the rest of the board had gotten that information. I did earlier today, but he might.
All right, so maybe he's,
Yeah.
There we go.
maybe he's here.
Well, that timing is perfect. It's like we knew what we were doing. No, it's good. It's good.
That's true.
That's fine.
Oh,
Hmm. Welcome to tonight's January 24th Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. Vivian, can we open up with a roll call?
Nicholas Worley,
Here?
Ann Hartman. Here. Fred DeVito.
Here.
Tom Zarecki.
Here.
All right. You all please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Some of you have done it twice tonight, but why not?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item on our agenda, the only item on our agenda for tonight is the 28 Walnut Street application. We had decided to
take some time to look at the project and some possible alternative approaches at our last meeting, so we put off a vote. Brian and Jean Seno are here with their lawyer, I guess, Josh?
That's me.
How
Nice
are
to
you,
meet
Josh?
you.
Nice
And
to
we've got Jordan Strack here also. You might be familiar with Jordan. He's their engineer. This is the same application that was submitted last year.
So there have been no modifications or changes
No modifications.
since the last meeting, or
Other than that, Jean had a baby, so she was.
has that modified the plan?
It does not affect the plan, but that's a big change.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, it might be worthwhile, though.
You can call me Nicholas, Joe. I'll call you Joe.
That's my Catholic upbringing.
That's not-
And then I married a minister's daughter in a Pentecostal church, so life gets odd. Anyway, it may be worthwhile for the zoning board members, because some of the concerns that came up as part of the discussion at both the ZBA and the planning board, while there aren't changes to the plan, I think there were considerations by the planning board that they felt were valuable in terms of conditions on their approval. And the planning board just had its meeting and did approve this plan, subject to the vote on the variances tonight, if you're inclined to vote tonight. I thought it might be worthwhile to apprise the board of those conditions, just so you understand because while the plan has not changed, the applicant has consented to conditions that provide some parameters for the approval, so.
I think that would be great, definitely, please.
So the first condition is that lighting on the proposed new residence shall be downlit and downshielded, and a note shall appear on the final plat to that effect. The deed for both lots created by this subdivision shall covenant that there shall be no natural screening or fencing along the driveway leading to the new residence in order to avoid the appearance of a flag lot, to the satisfaction of the village attorney. So Josh can submit that to me, and I'll take a look at it, make sure it comports with this condition. And the note referencing those covenants should be placed on the final plat, so that that's part of what gets filed with the county. The applicant shall use sediment and erosion control measures approved by the village planner to limit impacts related to stormwater and to water quality on nearby aquatic resources. The applicant shall provide the bog turtle education and encounter plan to all contractors, subcontractors, and work persons for their use during construction. The applicant shall submit a preliminary plat for signature by the chairman of the planning board, which comports with the conditions herein and the provisions of Village Code Section 8211. Which is your subdivision regs. The applicant shall, within the applicable time periods according to village code and state law, submit for final plat approval, which comports with Section 8212, which is your final plat requirements for that submission, as well as containing the notes referenced herein. And then the last condition was that the ZBA shall have approved the variance. So that doesn't bind you tonight, but since the planning board acted first, that was a necessary condition. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm sure the applicant is too, if the board would like to discuss any aspect of the application, or you can proceed.
We've already done a public hearing on this, and since the plan hasn't changed, there's no need to open up for a public hearing tonight, right? Okay. I'd like to invite the applicant to add anything to tonight's discussion. If there's anything that they want to bring up, I want to give them a forum right now to.
Well, that's very nice of you. I don't think so. We've talked about this a lot amongst ourselves, and the plan is as submitted. We appreciate all the time you're spending on this, and hope that we can leave tonight with some outcome.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I don't happen to have any questions. I'm aware of what the plan was that we had gotten last time. Does any other board members have any questions? No. Okay. Joe, remind me, I don't have the list in front of me, but how many variances are we talking about here? I think there's 4 or 5.
They listed here.
Yeah, let's see.
So you have the lot frontage, you have the mandatory garden wall for both lots 1 and lot 2, and then you have the 50% minimum frontage build out, so it's 4. One which is the same for both lots.
Right. Got it. Okay. Thank you, Karen. All right. this project is complicated for me. In our last meeting, I spoke off the cuff from some notes, and I realized that that's not necessarily my forte. So I've organized a couple of pages of thoughts here on my thoughts about the project, the depth of thought that I've put into it, and some of the things that I think are important to consider. This essentially will be my opinion, and then I'm going to invite the other zoning board members as well to express their thoughts, opinions, and concerns. The Seno family application before us tonight is a layered one. It has been heard in various forms by both boards, both the Planning Board and the Zoning Board of Appeals, for about a year as it has evolved. The decision before the ZBA tonight regarding this application is one that I believe will end up having a large impact on this village. Brian and Jean Seno currently live in their house at 28 Walnut Street with immediate family and one set of in-laws, as I understand it. And Brian and his wife would like to increase the housing capacity to accommodate more in-laws for a portion of the year. The Seno application is before the board tonight for a total of 4 variances. On the face of it, it seems simple. The Seno family would like to add another home on their existing property lot. The current zoning codes and regulations, however, don't allow it. The current lot has an existing non-conforming 2-family home on it now. This 2-family home would not be allowed to be built under the current zoning regulations. Adding another residential structure for 3rd-family accommodations is even further from what is allowable on this existing lot. The Village Planning Board, in an attempt to find a solution that was acceptable for a hearing and vote by the Zoning Board of Appeals, has recommended that the applicant ask for a series of what are called area variances, these 4 that Karen just mentioned. These variances would result in the deed for this .64 acre lot to be split into 2 parcels with 2 separate deeds. This would enable the existing 2-family home to continue in its current form on a parcel about half the current size, and would divide the lot into a 2nd parcel for construction of a 3rd family residence, meaning a 3rd family, not a 3rd building. This project plan would also allow selling each of these parcels separately. I've been in numerous discussions and meetings with the Planning Board Chairman, as well as our consulting legal counsel, Joe Ariol, and our village planner here, Karen Labruto, to determine the best way forward. And it's clear that this applicant has spent considerable time and resources on this proposed project in the hope that the ZBA might grant these numerous variances. The ZBA has the important responsibility of trying to navigate applicant requests while at the same time ensuring the least impact and preserving the character of existing neighborhoods. With those thoughts in mind, I've had 2 major objections to this project from the start. A loss of green space due to parking and additional driveways that are part of the urban regulations, and dividing this property into 2 lots. The plan presented to us this evening has made no changes to any of the green space conditions that had been expressed by some of the other members as well as myself. And the dividing of the 2 lots, dividing of the property into 2 lots is actually, for me, the objection that I think is the most important in this case. I'd hope that we might be able to accommodate this application with some legal restrictions attached to the new deed so that the property would still behave almost like 1 lot, even though it would be divided into 2. Perhaps requiring that both deeds must be held under 1 name, and at least one of the 2 lots was owner-occupied. In fact, I did some research into an area of New York real estate law called covenants, conditions, and restrictions. I have been informed, however, by our legal counsel, Joe, here, that this board doesn't have the jurisdiction to add any such language to the deeds, and apparently these restrictions can only be added voluntarily by the property owner. It's clear to me that the zoning variance decisions made tonight have a much bigger implication in the needs of this applicant, and they are much bigger than this project. The decision before us tonight, I think, requires us stepping back and looking at the bigger picture. I must be direct when I say that I believe that granting a positive decision on these variances for this application is far from a good idea. During the more than 18 years of my service on the Zoning Board of Appeals, we have never had a decision before us resulting in dividing a lot in half with 2 deeds. There is no precedent in this village for a decision leading to this result. I can't possibly know exactly what was on the minds of the village planners when they wrote the zoning code regarding Walnut Street, but one thing I can be very confident of is that if they wanted these lots to be half the size that they are now, then they would all be a lot smaller than they are today. Granting this set of variances will undoubtedly set a precedent and a pathway for other property owners in this village to be able to divide their lot into 2 with 2 deeds. Brian Seno has said that his research reveals that approximately 15 properties in the village have conditions which would allow similar subdivisions of lots. If this board grants variances that allow this once, we open the door for other similar variance requests. Having said yes once, we leave this Zoning Board of Appeals little, if any, legal standing to deny any other similar requests. I certainly am not comfortable casting a vote tonight to allow the possibility to change the face of 15 properties on scattered streets around our charming village because of the needs of one applicant. That would not be preserving the character of Pawling Village. This brings me to another point. I've been told that this project is to make room for extended family to be able to live in Pawling for a few months of the year. In discussions with a planning board member recently, I was informed that a 20% increase in the size of the existing house is allowed and would likely create plenty of room for another family member without the need for any deed manipulations. The average time a family lives in one home in this country is less than 13 years. These 4 variances being requested, if granted, would permanently change this property for what appears to be a temporary need. This property has stood as it is for over 120 years, and these proposed changes will affect this lot for at least the next 100 years. Sometimes the easy decisions are not the right ones, and sometimes making the right decision isn't easy. Granting zoning variances can have significant repercussions in a neighborhood. These repercussions don't go away, and they usually can't be undone. These decisions can also exert undue pressure on the Zoning Board of Appeals to make similar decisions because of precedent. We have all seen examples of the negative results from zoning board decisions in many of the villages and towns surrounding our charming village of Pawling. I cannot vote in support of passing any requested variances for this application. In the best interests of Pawling Village, my responsibility requires that I must consider the long-term needs of this village a priority over this applicant's temporary needs. Thank you, and I want to thank you all for your patience in that long discussion, but I wanted to make sure I covered all my bases on many of the nuances that I feel are involved in this project. I'd like to invite the other board members to express any of their concerns and thoughts about this project that's before us and these variances.
I don't have anything eloquently prepared as yourself, but I have expressed my thoughts in prior meetings, and I think that's all been on the record, and everybody's had a chance to hear those thoughts and recommendations.
Okay. Fred, Ad, either of you have anything you'd like to add?
Well, I mean, I appreciate your opinion. on this, but, you know, you may think that this will set a precedence for the village, but my opinion is that, you know, every application that comes in front of us is not the same, it's gonna be different. So, you know, what we may or may not pass tonight may not work in other properties, but it works in this one, in my opinion. I do remember stating the original meeting that this came towards us, I think we had all voted for it, and I believe I had stated that this property is kind of unique because of the way the house is situated on the property. It kind of fits to allow the second driveway for the property and the new house in the back. So, you know, as far as I'm concerned, I think that the project should move forward.
All right, thank you. All right. I have no doubt that a building could fit there, Fred. My biggest objection is the precedent of allowing a legal pathway for deeds to be split. And Brian alone, in his research, has said that there are 15 similar properties that could do this. And
Well, in his opinion.
Right.
Doesn't mean that our opinion states that those properties.
Right,
will
right.
work.
My thought is I don't want to leave this board or future boards open to being stressed to make decisions that might not
I
be the
don't believe
best.
we're stressed.
Mm-hmm.
We just have to take each applicant
Right.
the way it comes. I mean, that's,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
you know.
Can I counter a couple of those opinions?
Josh, you definitely can. You are welcome to express yourself. I certainly took the floor for quite a while.
Jordan, Josh Jordan.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Jordan.
You stressed a lot of the green space stuff, and I think we appreciate that, but that's not one of the variances. We meet lot size. So you talked about lot sizes were larger than a lot of the lot sizes. I get the frontage might be small. The other two variances for the rock wall and fence don't exist. So yes, there's a large number, but they don't exist at any of the properties in that neighborhood. So those seem very minor. I think the biggest one is the frontage, which we're aware of. And I think to Brian's point in the past, there's 15 properties that have roadway frontage that could be split like this, but the house is not always located to one side of the lot where you could split it like this.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think helps you in your decisions in the future. We put a lot of thought into this plan for a long time. And if it wasn't for a prior vote that pointed us in the direction that we thought we could pursue this, maybe we would have changed the plan, but this is probably, in my opinion, the best plan for this lot, to accommodate all the needs of both boards and the property owners.
All right, thank you, Jordan. I think at this point, we don't need to necessarily list the variances. It probably is best to do a vote on the package as presented. I think that just makes things cleaner. That being said, I want to have a motion to take a vote on granting these variances for this applicant.
I'll make a motion to grant the variance.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor of taking a vote, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. What I'd like to do in this case is offer and do a count on 3 possible votes which are available: voting in favor, voting opposed, and abstentions.
I'm sorry, didn't we just have a vote? I just want to make sure.
We motioned to
Oh,
take a
just
vote.
motion, so now's the discussion. Okay.
Yes.
Well, no, he's not saying a discussion. Say what you just said again?
What I'd like to do next is, now that we've had a motion to take a vote, I'm going to present counting votes in 3 different ways: asking for positive votes, asking for votes opposed, and asking for any abstention votes. That being said, I'd like to ask the board if who here is in favor of passing the existing variances for this project. Please say aye.
Aye.
We have 2 in favor. Any votes opposed to passing these variances? Please say that they are opposed or say.
Would you just repeat the variances? I'm sorry, it sounds like I haven't been listening, but I have.
Karen, if you, excuse me, I know you have it handy.
Yeah. Would you like me to repeat them?
Sure, that'd be great.
Okay. So, one variance is for the minimum lot frontage, which is required at 100 feet, and they're proposing 30.
So a variance of 70 feet is needed.
2 variances are for a mandatory garden wall or fence, which is required as part of the urban regulations on each lot. 1 on each lot. And then the last variance is for the 50% minimum frontage build out for lot 1, which again is an urban regulation requirement.
So, I'm not quite sure how to proceed here because we've already asked for all in favor, and
Well,
there
but
were
I
2
don't
in
know
favor.
that- Ann, did you voice your
I
vote?
didn't, no.
Yeah.
Well, let's see how things add up. If we need to revisit, we will. Any zoning board members opposed to passing these variances, please say aye. I am opposed. Any members who would like to abstain from a vote this evening, please say aye. All right, we are short 1 vote, so I will repeat that.
I'm sorry, I don't know that we are. Did you, Ann, did you vote?
She has not yet.
Yeah.
So, we'll do another count for any members in favor of passing these 4 variances. Any members in favor of passing these variances, please say aye.
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 We have 2.
This is as a group,
Yes.
not individually, but as a group.
Yes.
But we all have an individual vote. So we have 2 positive votes. Ann, are you voting to pass these variances?
Not at this point, no.
Okay. Do you wish to oppose passing them, or do you wish to abstain?
No, I'd like to, no, I'm not opposed either.
You are not opposed, so you'd like to abstain. Okay. All right, this board has 4 members. In order for variances to be passed, we need a quorum of at least 3. We have not met that quorum. So I believe that leaves this as not being passed because we don't have 3 positive votes.
Can I use a point of order?
Yes, please.
Just for the record, I just want to state my concern. I want to use the word objection, but I don't want to sound overly formal. I know we're not in a court, so I'm going
That's
to
fine.
resist that temptation. But I think perhaps there might be some benefit, instead of packaging variances as you proposed in one comprehensive vote, maybe your board members would benefit if you went through the factors, like you're required to do on area variances, and, got into a little more discussion. We're not in any rush to get out of here, and just present each variance so that your board members might feel more comfortable. Why would someone abstain? I don't know, but I think it's a little unorthodox to package them the way that you did. I'm just gonna say that.
Well, we've actually, Josh, in all due respect, we've talked about the specifics of these over at least 2 previous meetings in detail and how many feet and what's going on.
I've
So I
never
think-
seen anybody call for a vote like that before. So I think that it had the effect of influencing one of your board members' decisions on how they would vote, and I think it's highly improper.
Joe, can I have your opinion
Yeah, I
on
mean,
this?
there's-
Because we have, this project has been before us for almost a year now, and all of these numbers have been the same, and we've all been at all of the meetings, so I don't think it's very confusing, and that's the reason that I chose to package it that way. I just figured it would be a bit more streamlined.
We have an application for several variances, and it could be possible that your board member needs
But
explanation.
We also had Karen Labruto just explain what they were as well. I
Per-
mean, I'm not sure how much.
Perhaps we could ask Anne. Anne, would it be helpful for you to go back through the variances 1 by 1 and discuss them with the criteria that are applied to use variances? Okay.
Area
I mean,
variances.
area variance.
I'm sorry. My apologies.
Yeah, I mean, there's no, it certainly seems like, I think that, it seems like there's a readiness question for you that I think if we, if we discuss them in more detail, because that sounds like what you expressed. So, I mean, we can discuss them one at a time. I mean, Josh, I don't know if you want to, so the first one is for the road frontage, which I think is, you know, has been well-defined over the course of this application. With respect to that, the character of the neighborhood issues, again, have been well fleshed out by I think the board and the applicant. It appears as though there's some difference of opinion on how or if it would change the character of the neighborhood, but.
I think it's the case, isn't it, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but that the neighborhood has many houses that don't have the required road frontage. Isn't that my understanding?
I think that's the position that you've taken, and I think it's a relevant consideration for the board on that particular application. I will also note that with respect to mitigating factors for that, as I mentioned, the planning board, and this kind of goes to the second potential variance too. The planning board, in order to avoid to set its own precedent for potential situations like this in the future, put a specific condition on their approval that that there shouldn't be screening or fencing along that driveway, so that at least in terms of the aesthetic appearance of the property from the road, you don't get that sense of that narrow driveway with a flag lot, which I know was a concern of yours too. So,
And for clarification, a flag lot is named that, and I only found this out kind of recently. A flag lot is called a flag lot because you've got this narrow section that goes to the road, and then it opens up into
Correct.
a flag shape.
it lacks the required, you know, frontage, the typically required frontage. And so there's been some discussion of that at the planning board, and if this board were to approve it, that would be a condition of their approval. The minimum, where are we? The
Garden walls?
the garden walls, again, to me, that's related in the sense that it's actually sort of been expressed that would be viewed as a negative to the plan, to have those garden walls and that sort of line of delineation, because it accentuates the flag lot. So I think the one variance that's being requested, it sort of falls in line with the first variance, which is the frontage variance, if the board is, you know, inclined to approve that. The 50% minimum frontage build out for existing house on lot 1, again, it largely marries with the first variance, with the frontage variance. It's what results from that, you know, from that proposed variance from the minimum frontage. So they kind of depend on one another, which is why they, I think, were packaged initially. But again, this discussion is valuable, I think. And so I don't know, Ann, whether you've got specific questions on any of them that give you pause, but that's kind of what is on the table. I don't know what you're, you know, I mean, is there anything you'd like to express about that would clarify any of these for you or help you be ready for a decision?
No, I think I wasn't completely comfortable with packaging them as the variance.
Oh, okay.
And rather than having them explained, I mean, I've read the material and I've been at the other
Sure.
meeting. But I guess I'm more comfortable just having them, for us to address them individually, one by one.
Well, then what I might
Jen,
recommend.
if I may, I
Go
think
ahead.
historically, the board ran through the criteria, the area variance rationale.
Yeah.
I think that would be helpful to Ann.
Do you want to speak to that, Josh? Just the typical area variance?
Sure, I mean, not all the factors you're familiar with.
Mhm.
You guys did this at one of your meetings last year, I think actually a couple of times. I might be confusing it with the planning board, but, you know, a big one, does it fit within community character? If granting this variance, area variance, or these area variances will somehow detract from the character of the community. And what you look at is the neighborhood, what else is happening there? Are there other lots
similarly situated, if dividing this lot in this way is gonna somehow create an aberration in the neighborhood. We said that there are other lots in the neighborhood that have similar road frontage problems. There was some talk about the substantialness of the variances. That's also a factor. Are these big variances, is another way of saying it. And I would submit in toto, no, these are not. This is an extra large lot. It's 55, almost a little over a half of an acre, 54.5. So it's a good sized lot, and as one of your fellow board members mentioned earlier, it's unique. So, you know, this idea of precedent, I'm sure Joe can explain that to the board and counsel you on that. It's not quite the same as it is in a court of law, where judges are restrained from, you know, deviating from precedent. You take every application that comes in front of you on its own merits. Sometimes there's similarities, and when there are similarities, sure, you're gonna have to look at what you did the last time. But there are ways to distinguish this property, as I think you know by now, from other properties in the neighborhood. Is the hardship, you know, is there a hardship? Is it self-created? You know, we could talk about that or not. You know, it's their own circumstances. We make our own decisions on family life. I chose to have 4 kids, and other people choose to have just none. It's a judgment call. So a lot of times these hardships are self-created, but none of the factors in and of themselves that you're asked to review when deciding an area variance are necessarily dispositive. You just have to discuss them all. And I think you did to some degree last year, but I'm glad that you're repeating them now, and I'm glad that we addressed this issue of unbundling them in this way so that, you know, you could, I don't want to tell the board what to do. Well, I do want to tell the board what to do, but I'm not going to tell the board what to do, which is, you know, maybe voting on each, you know, variance separately would make you a little more comfortable.
Yeah, I do think there's some wisdom to that. Speaking to the, frankly, just to make the record clear on whether any one or more had specific issues relevant to it. Speaking to the conditions or the standards, I do want to mention that the self-created difficulty is specifically stated in the state law to be a relevant factor but not a determinative factor, because to a certain extent, as Josh has indicated, all variance applications are largely, you know, for the purposes of the applicant and are to some extent self-created. Mm-hmm. One thing worth noting here is, again, I think these variances, and I do think we should probably separate them to make the record clear, and that's easy enough to do as an amendment to the proposed resolution. The variances are to a certain extent related to one another, like they result from the plan, and they really kind of all fall in line with the fact that the minimum frontage is not met, and once you get past that, there are certain restrictions that the lot presents in order to meet the urban planning regulations and the other, you know, variances that are requested here. So I do think that having said that it would be worthwhile, I think, to, and Ann, if you have any further questions or inquiries about this, obviously let's discuss them. But it probably makes sense to separate them for purposes of the record.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. We can do a separate vote. It essentially tallies up the same way. We can just separate.
Well, I mean, we'll see, because I think that, and you expressed your concern that bundling them made you uncomfortable in proceeding that way. So I think let's see whether, you know, what the vote is if we package them. So I think to put it, and we'll amend it, if this goes forward, obviously the resolution can be amended accordingly, but basically there's a whereas provision in the proposed resolution, which spells out each of the variances. And so we could, if someone would make a motion and second, we could go through them one at a time. So I'll read them. The first is a bulk regulation for minimum lot road frontage, 100 feet required.
They're asking for 30 feet.
And they're asking for 30 feet.
So we need a 70-foot variance.
Right.
On that.
So is someone?
I'll make a motion to grant a 70-foot.
I don't want to actually go for a vote yet. I actually have one more question for Brian, if that's all right.
I actually had.
Hold on. Yes, so, you can direct your questions to me.
Okay. I've been informed by the planning board that increasing the size of this home by 20% would be allowed and wouldn't require any variance.
That's not what we're applying to do right now.
I understand. Was that even considered as a possible solution rather than this pathway?
As you can imagine, a lot of options were considered, and we don't think that that's relevant to what you're charged with doing right now, which is voting on each of the variances.
I understand. It just seems like it could have been a possible simpler solution rather than a process that's taken about.
I mean, you say so, but,
No,
adding, putting, like the Waltons, putting everybody in one house together might work for you, but I don't know that it works for everybody.
I totally understand, Josh. I just wanted to present the question.
Okay.
So that being said, I guess we can make a motion to take separate votes, but Joe, you're going to explain them, each one of them before we take
Well,
a
I
vote?
think
Is that what we were
so.
figuring is best?
I think we've had the discussion of the standards, which will apply to each one of the potential area variances. And so what I was suggesting now is if somebody is comfortable making a motion on this first variance and seconding it, you could have a vote on the first variance, which is 30-foot road frontage where 100 feet is required.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
So I'd like to make a motion to vote on the first variance of the front lot frontage distance of 70 feet. Did I get that right?
Kind of granting a 70-foot variance.
Yep.
For the road frontage of the second.
I'll second that motion.
All right. All in favor of approving the variance for 70 feet less road frontage than is normally required, say aye.
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 All opposed? I'm opposed.
The next variance would be Schedule B, a variance from Schedule B urban regulations, the mandatory garden wall and fence on lots 1 and 2.
All right. Can I have a motion to take a vote on, it's actually 2 variances because it's one for each of what would become 2 lots?
It's for lots 1 and 2,
For
correct?
lots 1 and 2. Can I have a motion for a vote on the mandatory fence and passing a variance
I'll
for?
make a motion on the mandatory garden wall and fence for lots 1 and 2.
Second.
All in favor of granting a variance, saying that they will not need a mandatory fence, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? For the record, I'm opposed. Joe, you want to go over variance 4?
Yep, a variance from the Schedule B urban regulations requiring a type 3 infill house is the next variance?
No.
No, I'm sorry.
The 50%
50%
minimum
minimum.
The
frontage
50,
build out.
sorry, yeah, that's a continuation. The 50% minimum frontage build out for the existing house on lot 1, which when these are split will require that variance. So that's a 50% minimum frontage build out for existing lot 1. And I actually don't, what is proposed?
I think they're going to keep the existing
For lot
build out.
1?
What is the existing build out? Actually, Josh, I guess you would be the best one to ask this as the engineer.
Jordan as the engineer.
So the build-outs are, the existing lot with the existing house on it with the 100-foot, it doesn't need a variance, that's 34%. We meet the 50% requirement. It's where we have a 30-foot
No, it's opposite.
road frontage. It's opposite?
Yeah.
The 50% build out is for the existing house, 36.5%.
It's just fine.
No, we
No,
need
you
to.
have
No,
to
you
give
would have to have a minimum of 50%.
Oh, minimum of 50, sorry. Yes, that is 34%.
Right, that's
My
an existing lot,
apologies.
yep.
It's a minimum, not a maximum, I apologize.
So, you know, as I've noted before, it's
16.
really it's an outcome and a corollary of the minimum lot frontage variance. It follows from it.
All right. Does anybody need any further explanation on that, or do we have a motion to take this to a vote?
I'll make a motion for the 50% minimum frontage building existing in lot 1.
For a variance on that, because right now they
Variance.
have 34%. Can I have a second to take that to a vote?
Second.
Okay, all in favor of granting a reduction of the required 50% build out to 34%, please say aye.
Aye.
We have 3 in favor. All opposed? I am opposed. Okay. Well, it appears we have a quorum on the variances. So this project, I believe, can move forward with whatever other little legal details Joe has to work out with that. I want to thank you guys for being here tonight. I know that I have probably been a little bit of a thorn in your side on some of my opinions on this, and I apologize for whatever stress that may have caused, but my goal is to try to do the best thing for the village, and I know that your goal is to do the best thing for you, and sometimes they don't quite meet in the middle very well. And once again, thank you for hearing me out.
Thank you. Joe, I guess we'll be in touch.
Yeah, and I'll revise the resolution for filing to map those out as individual approvals.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Although I wasn't in favor, I want to wish you luck on your project. I hope it all goes smoothly.
It'll be beautiful. You'll be very pleased.
Okay, moving on to approval of minutes. The board members had a chance to read the minutes from our last meeting.
Yes.
Can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve last meeting's minutes.
I'll second that. All in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And have you voted on it?
Yes, I'm voting yes.
So we have voted to approve the minutes. Vivian, I don't think we have any other business
We do.
tonight, do we? Oh, okay.
Just 95 East Main Street decision, you just have to sign it.
So just the front page there?
Just that front page, yeah.
Okay, great. I know I had said this previously. Thank you. Okay, I think that's all. If any other board members have anything else they wanted to bring up, we can do that. Otherwise, we can have a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn
I'll
tonight's
second it.
meeting.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, all right. Our meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for attending tonight.